بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. It is Wednesday, the 27th of October 2021, and in our series Reflections on the Holy Quran, this is broadcast number 270. And in this broadcast, we are going to look at the meanings of Al-Baqarah, chapter 2 of the Holy Quran, verse 94. And this is our second broadcast in that series. So, and I just want to remind you that the Lahore Ahmadiyya community, which brings you these broadcasts, was established by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Rahmatullah Alayh. And he taught us that although generally people believe that a prophet will come after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, the Holy Quran says the Holy Prophet is Khatamun Nabiyyin, so no prophet will now come. Not an old one, not a new one, because the Holy Prophet said, La Nabiyya Ba'di, there is no prophet after me. There is no prophet after me. And if the Ummah, when the Ummah needs reform, then reformers, Mujaddideen, will come to guide people to the right path. And obviously, this will lead to some disagreement and so on, because they'll be asking people to give up their old habits, which God has told them are against Islamic teaching, and old beliefs which people might have developed, which might not align with the Holy Quran or Hadith and so on. But the Holy Prophet warned us. He said that if one reciter of the Kalima says to another reciter of the Kalima that you are not a Muslim, then the person saying this is closer to being a heretic. And that is why we should not say to any reciter of the Kalima, you are not a Muslim. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh also taught us that although some people say that some of the prophetic revelation is not in the Holy Quran, such as Surah Rajam and Ayah Walai, this is incorrect. All the prophetic revelation that was received by the Holy Prophet is with us in the Holy Quran, because God said, I have revealed it and I am a guardian over it. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad also taught us that although people say that verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated, as the Shah Waliullah Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh says that people believe that over 1200 verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated. If you believe that, then how can you say that God has revealed this? So Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that no verse of the Holy Quran was, is, or ever shall be abrogated. And most importantly, Hazrat Sahib insisted that every Muslim must conduct jihad, but jihad as defined by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, not by some jurist or some Maulana or something. And while returning from a battle, the Holy Prophet Muhammad said, from the minor jihad, we now return to the major jihad, and then explained that major jihad is a jihad, a struggle to control your inner desires and your inner self, your greed and envy and enmity and dishonesty and lying and all of these things. And they can be harder to control than fighting and killing someone. It may surprise you, but it can be harder. So anyway, let us turn to the verse of the Holy Quran that we're going to discuss, which is chapter 2, Al-Baqarah, verse 94. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن كانت لكم الدار الآخرة عند الله خالفة من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين. Say, if the abode of the hereafter with Allah is especially for you to the exclusion of the people, then invoke death if you are truthful. Some verses of the Holy Quran were revealed in response to debates with Christians and Jews. And when people could not be convinced by argument, then the Holy Prophet said, okay, well, if argument doesn't convince you, then let us pray to God for him to decide. So that whoever is the lawyer, he's made an example, he's killed, etc. And people then shied away from that. The word we're going to look at today is Al-Akhirat. So let us look at the meanings of this word. Its triliteral root is Hamza, Ha, and Ra. And it occurs, the words based on that root occur in the Holy Quran 250 times. And out of that, 155 times, the word is Akhir. And 70 times, the word is Akhar. Akhir and Akhar. And then 15 times, we have Akhara. And 6 times, we have, where are we? Yastakhiru. And 3 times, we have Ta'akhara. And then once we have Mustakhirin. And it means either to give respite, to delay, to give time, to postpone, or as a noun, a derivative means the last day, the last. For example, in chapter 4, verse 77, it says, Laula akhartana ilaya ajalin qarib. So delayed, postpone it for us. And then chapter 11, verse 8, God says, Wala in akharna anhumul azaba. And I delay the punishment. And then again in chapter 11, verse 104, Wama nuakharuhu. We delayed. And give them respite. Of course, something is delayed, you get respite. So it also means stay behind, as chapter 74, verse 37, where it says, An yataqaddama aw yata'akhara. Stay behind. So delayed, stay behind. And then hereafter, we've seen in many places in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, that it's used in this way. For example, this is verse 4 of the same chapter. وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. So hereafter, last day, and so on. But a similar derivative is used for to be later generations in the Holy Quran. Because the essence of the word is to delay something. So the Holy Quran says in chapter 37, 37, verse 78. Where are we? Chapter 37, verse 78. Yes, that's right. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. The ones who will come at the later generations. And again, same words are used later on, then in slightly different words. وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِمَا فِي الْآخِرِينَ. This is in same chapter, verse 119. Again, meaning those who will come later generations. And it also means others, the last, others, and it can mean other as an adjective. Min ayyamin ukhara. So this is the adjective, the quality of the ayyam. They are ayyamin ukhara, other, or even last, another time, another day, and so on. So if we look at its meaning, then obviously it's I'm flicking through my notes here to try and right, here we are. So According to dictionaries, what it means is that it is the last in a chain. So that after that, the whatever it is, it changes. There is no comparison between what has gone before it and what is coming after. And actually, I'll give the example here that I gave later on in the Urdu broadcast. And that is the example of the birth of a child. That we see how the Quran says that you start with an atom, and how you develop, how you become the fetus, and then we have flesh, then we have bones, and then we have skin on the bones, and etc., etc. And then, of course, we have birth. The birth, in a way, is Yawm al-Akhir for the baby in the womb. It is the last day in the womb. It's the last day of that life where the baby didn't have to do anything, didn't even have to breathe. You know that the first thing that the nurses and doctors do is to get a baby to breathe. They hang them upside down from their ankles and slap their bottoms and so on. And the baby suddenly has an intake of air and starts to breathe. Didn't have to do that before. It just laid there. Didn't have to eat, didn't have to drink, didn't have to do anything else. It didn't have to excrete fecal matter. Now it does. So you can see that that chain of events where the previous condition of the fetus was pretty similar to the next condition and so on, has come to a point where that is terminated. It is now a whole new ball game. As I said, that baby has to make an effort to eat and drink and do all these things. Without doing them, it will die. So that is Yawm al-Akhir. Now, something similar, I guess, will happen when this physical body gives up and stops functioning. That we'll move on to a different form of life, a form that is based solely on the soul. There is no physical body as such. And people might say, well, how is that possible? Well, how was it possible for that baby to live without breathing in the mother's womb for 9 months? Not for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, 9 months. And it was still alive. And there have been cases where there's been an accident and the surgeons have operated on a pregnant woman. And although the mother has died, the baby is still alive and it's delivered. How is that possible? The point is, these things we know we can experience, or others who've experienced them, they tell us. But when that chain, that part of the chain finishes, when the physical body dies, what happens after that? We don't know. Yawm al-Akhir, the day everything will change. It's called the last day. That's the day as we know it. Some people say that the whole of universe will die, but maybe it will. Science says maybe it will. But what will follow? What will happen after that? We don't know. And so, Yom al-Akhir, the last day on which you will have a sunrise and a sunset, the last day on which you will see the sun and smell the roses and feel the rain on your face. And when you go out, you will shiver because it's cold. That will not happen anymore. But there is a similarity with this life in that you know that in the West there is stress on telling pregnant mothers not to smoke and not to drink and so on, because that harms the baby. It has now been shown that mothers who smoke when their babies are born, their brains are smaller in size than the brains of the babies whose mothers didn't smoke. Same with drinking, etc. That it damages the baby. If you use stronger drugs and so on, the baby can be born addicted to those drugs. So you can see that life moves on from one state to another state. And the quality of life in the new state depends on what happened in the previous state. Mother smoked, baby is born with a shrunken brain. Mother took heroin, the baby is born addicted to heroin. And so on. And we can guess that something similar will apply to when this physical body perishes and we move on to the next life. Then we move on to the next life. Maybe there are some deeds. That means that when this body finishes, our soul or spirit will move into the next life on a higher plane, in a purer state. Let's say, take the example of two people. One is helpful to human beings and is concerned about the poor and helps everyone and all this kind of thing. And the other one, he is just greedy, grasping. He doesn't care about anyone else. He wants to have the biggest house in the street, the poshest car, and all this kind of thing. And maybe he gets these things by some means. So we can surmise that the first person, when his physical body perishes and his soul is born, just like the baby being born, that soul is born into a pure state or purer state, into a higher state. Whereas the other person who's greedy and grasping and so on, his body perishes, giving birth to his soul, but his soul will be in a lower state and will have to go through some treatment, some pain to get to a higher state. The Quran has tried to explain to us what they may be like. We're told that they'll be pure companions. Now, here you need husbands and wives and partners, Zawj, as they are called in Arabic, Zawjain, to propagate the human race. But will the companionship be required? Will a couple be required for those purposes in the next life? We can guess not. But we don't know what that companionship will be for. Maybe souls also feel loneliness. And, they want companionship. I don't know. But basically, we know that people will get the kind of companions that basically they deserve. And but I mean, you see, these are just summarizations. We don't know. We're trying to understand the Holy Quran and thinking about things that we know, that we feel and experience. But another important way of remembering this is, we're talking about a radical change, that the same thing happened when the Holy Prophet came. The same thing happened, that you recited the Shahada, and spiritually your previous life ended, and you entered a new phase of life. In your previous life, you were cruel to your slaves. You beat them, you starved them, you subjected them to too much work, too much hardship, without caring for their welfare and so on. And suddenly you move to a phase of life where, though he may be a slave, but he is your equal. You have to give him to wear what you wear. You have to give him to drink what you drink. You have to give him to eat what you eat. You even have to allow him to buy his freedom. It's a radically different way of life for a people to adopt. 1 minute, you're greedy, you are jealous, you're grasping, you're lying, you're cheating, you're dishonest, and you recite that kalima, and you die, and a new you is born, who's kind, who's considerate, who's truthful, who's honest, who's generous, who wants to serve and help humanity. That too is a kind of death. A death of your old self and birth of a new being. And we see this radical change. For example, Hazrat Umar, 1 minute he's pulled the sword and he's marching to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's house to rid the world of him. And he hears some words of the Holy Quran. And suddenly the sword falls from his hand. And he's a changed man. The old Umar is dead. A new Umar is born. He's the one. who says, well, we have right to go and pray in Kaaba, and we are going to do it. And Muslims march to the Kaaba, and he stands there, sword in hand, saying, come on then, who's going to stop us? I'm going to cut off anyone's heads who tries to stop us. So where is the man who was actually trying to stop Muslims and martyr the Holy Prophet Muhammad? And he's dead. That was his last day. It finished his previous life. We've run out of time. So I take my leave of you with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep everyone safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum